Wonderful. Thank you for joining us tonight for this year's virtual alumni panel. My name is Kelly Krieves. My pronouns are she, her. I am a class teacher at Mountain Sage, and I'm currently serving as a teacher mentor. I am thrilled to host this virtual evening for a second year in a row. Graduation and the transition to high school is really fresh on my mind as my own class graduated in May of 2022. So we have some incredible panelists here tonight who will be sharing their experience in moving from time at Mountain Sage in their elementary and middle school years and into a local high school. And one of my former students is on the panel right now. So we're really going to get the no holds barred truth of how it all goes down, right, Nera? So the goal of the evening is to offer an opportunity for you all, current parents, guardians, and students who might be here tonight as well, to hear how Mountain Sage graduates experience the move, the threshold, the transition into high school from our middle school program. A few little bits of housekeeping before we begin. If you could please keep yourself muted unless you are a panelist, that would be wonderful. There are 7 initial questions that I'm going to pose to the panelists, and I will then move on to asking another question that was submitted ahead of time via Parent Square to me. And the chat, though, will be left open so that you can add questions as they come to you. As you're listening to these graduates speak, if anything comes to you, a question that you have that maybe hasn't been addressed yet, please feel free to pop it in the chat, and they will be collected by Hillary Mizia, who's on here tonight with us as well, our esteemed communications specialist, and we will address them at the end of the panel as time allows. So thank you, Hillary, for doing that. I feel a bit like I'm on a game show. So without further ado, I want to welcome our 4 panelists this evening. They were chosen from a few different graduating classes here at Mountain Sage, and they attend various high schools in the area in order to provide a broader perspective. We typically have a ton of volunteers, I want to say, for this event, and from former students who want to come back and share with our community. And it has to be kept to 4 panelists in consideration of time, but these are such impressive young people, and I'm so grateful that they can be here tonight to talk with us. So panelists, I will call you one by one, and for this first question is not too challenging. I hope it's for you to share your name, your preferred pronouns if you have them, and also how many years you spent at Mountain Sage, who your teacher was or what graduating class you were in, and then where do you go to high school now and what grade? Okay, so I'm going to repeat that for you because that was a lot of things, and I see some of you like, okay. So your name, preferred pronouns if you have them, how many years you spent here at Mountain Sage, and which graduating class you're in from Mountain Sage, and then where you go to high school now, what grade you're in. Okay. So I'm going to start with, we have 2 9th graders here with us today. So I'm going to start with Ella Mizia, one of our 9th grade participants.
Cool. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. I'm Ella, pronouns are she, her. I spent 9 years at Mountain Sage. My teacher, I had a few teachers, but my middle school teacher was Mr. Van Horn. And I'm a freshman at Poudre High School.
Thank you, Ella. Thanks for being here. And another 9th grader from Mr. Van Horn's graduating class. This is James Sudhalter.
Sorry, my unmute didn't want to work. I'm James, or as a couple of you know me, Jimmy Suds. I spent 4.5 years at Mountain Sage. I had Mrs. Vermouth, Miss Spinden, and Mr. B, but I've been in Waldorf my whole life. Oh, and I'm a freshman at Rocky.
Thank you for being here, James. Awesome. And then we have a 10th grader here with us tonight, Nera Wilson.
Hi, I'm Nera. I go by she, her pronouns. I spent 5 years at Mountain Sage and graduated in Miss Krieves' class. And I'm a sophomore at Rocky Mountain High School.
Thanks for being here, Nera. And finally, our upperclassman, I guess, joining us today is Amelia Vidergar.
Yes, I'm Amelia. I use she, her pronouns. I spent 6 years at Mountain Sage. I had Miss Lark and then Miss Geck and then Mr. Van Horn. And I am currently a senior at Polaris.
Great. Thank you, Amelia. All right, wonderful. So thanks so much for being here. So as facilitator, I'm going to pose a question for each of you to answer in your own unique way, building off of the previous respondent. So you'll all have a chance to answer the question, and I'll call on you in the same order so that you know what to expect. So if you could please keep your answer to 1 to 2 minutes, that would be helpful so that we can get to as many questions as we can. And are there any questions before we begin from the panelists? Okay, all right, let's do it. So first question is going to be for Ella first. Ella, in what ways and how well did Mountain Sage prepare you for your transition to high school?
So I think Mountain Sage prepared me pretty well. I think it really helped me like be comfortable to meet new people. It helped me overcome what I call like stage fright in just like presenting myself. It also gave me a lot of good communication skills, which I think are very important, especially as a freshman, needing to communicate my needs to my teachers and also just when it comes to meeting new people. And I think for the actual transition part, being told about high school, I think it prepared me fairly well because I was given a very real expectation of what to really, expect in high school. So.
Thanks, Ella. Okay, James, same question. In what ways and how well did Mountain Sage prepare you for your transition to high school?
I agree with what Ella said. Also, like we did start taking notes and all that kind of stuff. That definitely helped. Learning how to do those skills of extracting the correct information from what the teacher was saying, that definitely helped prepare me well.
Thanks. And Nera, in what ways and how well did Mountain Sage prepare you for your transition to high school?
I don't know. I feel like emotionally, if anything, like, I don't know, just making friends and connections. Like, I feel like I was emotionally and like socially on a really high level just because so many of my peers like didn't have things like talking circles and I don't know, stuff along those lines. I feel like some sort of the like imaginative, childlike kind of tendencies of Waldorf teaching definitely like stuck with me throughout my years and some sort of sense of like identity for sure. Like, I don't know, I know so many people to this day who like I don't know who I am, but they don't know like who they are. And I feel like some sort of like part of my younger self I've definitely taken with me throughout the years and like in high school. And that's been like super important for me that I've definitely learned at Mountain Sage and like brought with me throughout those years.
These answers are so beautiful. Thank you all for sharing. So, and Amelia, in what ways and how well did Mountain Sage prepare you for high school?
Yes, I agree with what everybody has said already. I would say the thing that has stood out the most just starting into high school was I had just a general respect and like kindness for everyone, no matter like who they were. And I feel like that was just always instilled into us. And so going into high school, I started noticing more and more like not everybody has this. And so just that level of like, I have so many friends. I don't just have one friend group because I have learned how to just be able to connect with everyone no matter which grade level they're in. And then on the academic side, I feel like we did a whole range of things. Like I didn't even realize how much we covered because it was just like built into what we were doing. But going into high school, I was able to like understand concepts and be able to grasp them because we had like maybe touched on them previously or whatever. So just having the like already sense of understanding of a lot of the core concepts of like freshman year at high school.
Thank you, Amelia. Okay, question 2. What did you consider when you were looking at high schools? So what recommendations would you offer to our current students as they're thinking about high school and deciding which one to go to? So Ella, you can answer first.
So I never really had the choice of what high school. My parents had told me you have to get yourself there. So because Pooter was so close and my brother is a senior there, that was the choice. But I do think it, like, if you have the options, it is important to really look around and see, because I think it's important to take into consideration what you want and what you want to get from your high school experience. And so if you just follow your friends or anything like that, I think you should look outside of that, and just take into consideration everything that, because you are going to meet new people.
Thanks, Ella. And James, what would you like to add about when you're considering looking at high schools? What recommendations?
Yeah, so originally my parents wanted me to go to Polaris, but then I kind of knew from the start I wanted to go to Rocky. I don't know why, I just kind of knew I wanted to go there. I mean, I've heard a lot of good things there, just like from people that I know. So I just kind of chose there because, and it was also a little bit closer to my house. So I just kind of took a couple things into consideration.
Great, good practical considerations there. Nera, anything you'd like to add about recommendations for high schools?
Yeah, I went to Rocky because my brother, who's a senior there, we could do rides and stuff like that. They have a really great art program. I've personally, just as a sophomore, I've taken like almost every art elective, and it's been so good. Like, I don't know, I've just enjoyed it so much. And they just have like a bunch of other extracurriculars that I learned when I was searching for schools. And so on top of just like the convenience, it just has a lot of factors that like are really intriguing for young kids or young teens.
Thanks, Nera. And Amelia, going to Polaris, anything else you'd like to bring into the conversation about recommendations when people are thinking about school of choice for high school?
Yeah, the funny thing was I actually wanted to go to Rocky, but we had to choice in because it's not our neighborhood school, and I never ended up getting in. But I did get into Polaris. So but I would say, I mean, you're gonna get this, for the most part, the same core classes no matter where you go. But thinking about like if you're someone who really likes sports, definitely find a big high school because you're going to have a lot more easy access to sports. But if you're someone who really enjoys having a tight-knit community and having the really close connections with your teachers and whatnot, I would say find a smaller school where you're able to have those connections. So it's really on a personal basis of like what you value most out of school.
Thanks, Amelia. Okay, so here's our third question. What are the positives and challenges of your high school? Ella, go ahead and answer first.
So I think there are a lot of both. Honestly, I think some positives for me is definitely a larger community. Because I spent so much time in Mountain Sage, just being able to meet a lot of new people is super exciting. I also do think that there's a lot more opportunities at a school like that. Some challenges that I've definitely seen a lot more hate towards others, if that's how I'd put it, because at Mountain Sage, if there's problems between students, it's addressed a lot differently because of the community. But I think because it's much more diverse in high school, it's a very different social dynamic, which is good a lot of ways, but still has its negatives. So.
Thanks, Ella. And James, positive and challenges of your high school.
One of the positives that I've noticed is being able to kind of choose your own classes a little bit more. There's some things that you kind of have to take, but like there's certain classes that you don't have to take. Like personally, I was never that great at drawing, and I know that our teacher's great on drawing, so it's kind of nice to be able to take a little bit of alternative classes. Some of the challenges would be some of the boys definitely act different than they did at Mountain Sage, like quite a bit different. So it's just definitely been a little bit of an interesting experience.
Okay, thanks, James. And Nera, positive and challenges of your high school.
Yeah, I think the community at Rocky is something that's been so intriguing to me. Like, we do our, I don't know, adopt a family where they have like whatever the Christmas time kind of like fundraisers, and then we have like, I don't know, just all these different like community sort of building activities that are like seasonal a lot of times, and I've loved that so much because it's not just like the community within like your classes, but it's like the whole school, which is crazy considering it's like 2000 whatever people, but like there's a sense of like community within everyone, and that's been super cool. On the downside though, like 2000 plus people is like a lot of people at a school, and you can totally feel that when you're like walking around the halls and stuff. Like, it's a lot of people, and I've definitely had to get used to that. But I think like if you're okay in that kind of situation, it's like it comes with a lot of like benefits, and it's been super fun, I think. But I think just the community, but kind of depending on like your personality and how you feel around a lot of people, it's like definitely a lot.
Definitely much bigger. Yeah. Okay. And Amelia, positives and challenges of your high school.
Yeah, so some positives are we have intensives that we do 3 times a year that are a week at a time at the end of a quarter, and there's all sorts of different things that we do. Some people go on canoe trips or skiing trips. Those are like the big adventure trips, but then there's also smaller intensives that just happen at school, like a craft one. There was like a fall themed one. We were just doing fall activities. Basically, you name it. And so there's things like that that are pluses, but the downside is that we don't have sports, and we don't have clubs, and we don't have a lot of the typical big school things. So you can go to other schools and do it, but it's just more challenging than if you were at a big school.
So at Polaris, you're saying that you can still participate in sports and things maybe at your local high school or with clubs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, at the local high school, but you're just gonna have to go, and I mean, you follow the same like tryout thing that as if you were somebody at the school, but you're just obviously you go to a different school, but doesn't mean you can't.
Great, thanks, Amelia. Okay, this next question is about your teachers. How are your relationships with your teachers now, and how do they compare to your relationships with your teachers at Mountain Sage? Ella.
So I think at Mountain Sage, teachers are really part of your class. I see it as they're part of that mini community where, as in high school, I think the types of teachers almost vary so much. I have a teacher who is very welcoming and really wants to get to know students, as I've noticed that some teachers feel like they're just more there to teach. And I personally like both environments. I think that they both have their positives, but it is definitely a lot different than at Mountain Sage.
Thank you. And James, relationships with your teachers now and how they compare to Mountain Sage.
It's definitely a different sort of relationship because you're kind of having a different teacher every class. There's some teachers I've just gotten to know more, and there's some teachers I like a little more than others. But overall, it's definitely different experience. Mountain Sage is definitely more personal because you have them for like many years. As with these teachers, you don't know if you're gonna have them again.
Thank you. And Nera, your relationships with your teachers now versus at Mountain Sage.
Well, my relationship with my teacher was really great. Yeah, I think like at Mountain Sage, I had sort of like a family within my class and with my teacher. And like, I don't think I'll ever get that again in a schooling experience, which is okay, but it was definitely like a once in a lifetime sort of thing that I got to experience, which was super great. And right now, my classes, I mean, are either like semester long or quarter long. And so I get to know my teacher for like a little bit. And then I have a new teacher with a different class. But there are totally some teachers that like I'll see in the halls from like last year and we'll totally have a conversation and stuff. It's just like, I don't know, it's very much less personal and like a family than I had at Mountain Sage. It's just, which isn't bad. It's just like, it's very different.
Generally, do you feel like your teachers are approachable though? You feel like you can ask them questions and
Oh yeah, definitely. I totally have great teachers. It's just like my relationship with them because of like the time that I spend with them will always be very different from my relationship with my teachers at Mountain Sage.
Thanks, Nera. And Amelia, same question.
Yeah, I agree with everybody that at Mountain Sage, your teacher was like the one that you stayed with for your whole time. So you got really close to them. I would say it's not exactly that same way at Polaris, but you do still get to know all your teachers really well because there is only like one art teacher, one music teacher. There's two math teachers and two English teachers, but other than that, there's really only like one teacher for each subject. So any class within that subject that you take, you're having that teacher. So you are just given the opportunity to get a lot closer with that teacher. But like, for example, I haven't taken any music classes because that's just not something I'm interested in. So if I see the music teacher in the hallway, I'll be like, hey, but I've never actually really had a class with her. So it's not like I could just walk up and have a conversation with her, but since we see each other every day, it's like, oh, I know who you are kind of thing.
Great. Thank you. Okay. And now a question that maybe some, rising freshmen logged on tonight to hear about is how much homework do you all get? So Ella, if you could answer first, how much homework do you get now as a freshman?
So I think that this one really depends on the class because I have some teachers who are kind of like, if you don't finish this in class, take it home, do it then. And they don't care that much and they don't purposefully assign homework. But I do have a teacher that's more like, more like, here's your homework, no time in class to do it at home. But overall, combined, I don't think I get a ton of homework, honestly. Most biology has the most homework by far.
So biology, know that when you are signing up for classes. James, what about you? What is your homework situation like? And maybe also, how does it compare to Mountain Sage?
Yeah, so in my experience, actually, I think because the teachers are a little more used to having 2 periods, we don't really have any homework at home. The only time you'd potentially have homework is in math if you didn't complete it. But like, from my experience, we haven't had any homework, nothing from biology either. Although the one thing that's different about Mountain Sage is we don't have any nature walk homework anymore.
No more nature walk homework? Bummer. Nera, homework for you. How is that going?
Yeah, I'm currently taking an AP class and a CP class, so I have a lot of homework, but like Ella said, it totally depends on what classes you're willing to take. Like my brother, he took all the like base requirement classes and he wasn't super interested in like taking any AP or like college placement classes. So he doesn't have any homework. He comes home, he has a super free night, but I don't know, I find more interest in those harder classes. So I have about like an hour of homework every night, which is not super bad. However, it totally also depends on the class that you take. And I'm on stage, like I don't remember having homework, like, or not a bunch of it, at least like it was rare. And I definitely have more this year, even compared to last year, but it totally depends on the classes that you're willing to take. So if you take AP or CP, prepare for a lot more homework.
That's helpful to think about for people. Thanks, Nera. And do you feel like in that leap then to doing these AP classes and having more homework, do you feel, even though it was different from Mountain Sage, do you feel like you were prepared to make that leap though, with, study habits and organization of your materials?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think it was something that like necessarily had to be passed on from Mountain Sage. I just had to like personally make sure that I had time in my schedule to like come home and like set aside time to do that homework. And that's totally something that I had to figure out myself because I chose to take those harder classes in the first place. So I think that's very much like a personal decision when you choose to take those classes, like structuring your life around that, because it does take up time, or at least for me, it's taken up a lot of time, different compared to a lot of my friends and my brother. But I don't feel like I was like unprepared or anything. I just had to like personally structure that.
Thanks, Nera. And Amelia, what about homework for you? How much homework do you get?
Yeah, so what I have noticed with teachers is they try to build in class time to be able to work on homework. So they will assign you things, but they'll give you class time to work on it. And then if you don't finish it, it's up to you to finish it at home. I will say I have started taking college classes, and even though they are through my high school, like taught by teachers there, they are college level classes, and that is a lot of work. So along with like Nera's AP classes and whatnot, if you take that next step up from just the like basic high school classes, it will be more work.
And Amelia, was that just this year in 12th grade that you began doing that, or when are college classes accessible to people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can basically start whenever you want. I started second semester of my junior year. And I was taking a class at Front Range at the campus. And basically you just have to go to your counselor at your high school, and they'll help you register and then sign up for whichever class you want to take. And then sometimes they'll have what they call high school select classes, which are classes that are college level classes, but at your high school. Otherwise, you can basically take whatever class you want that's being offered at Front Range, as long as there isn't like a specific prerequisite that you need for that class.
Okay, thanks. And I'm seeing Nera wants to add something. Yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say, like, along with whatever like kind of programs that they have at Polaris, like at Rocky, they have something called like the Ascent program, and just a few programs that like you can get into to start taking college classes and getting credit for them. Like for me, taking my AP classes right now, like I will have to take the AP test at the end of the year to get like college credit, but I will get college credit for taking those classes. And if you take CP classes, those are like college prep classes, so they're going to be harder than your like base kind of, like I'm taking CP English right now. It's going to be harder than your normal English, but it won't get you any college credit, but it's just going to be like more challenging. So I would definitely recommend that if you feel like those kind of core classes will be a little too easy for you. But there are a lot of like super cool programs to get you into taking college classes and getting credit for those at Rocky.
Thanks, Nera. So Ascent was one of those. Appreciate that. I know some people are interested in that. Awesome. Okay, great. So our next question, I may have already taken us a little bit into this on the previous question, but did you learn organization and time management skills at Mountain Sage that enable you to be successful in completion of schoolwork? So Ella, thank you.
I think yes, 100%. I know a lot of kids in my classes do struggle with homework or just time management, and I don't really struggle with that, and I think that is because of Mountain Sage and how they've taught everything like that. I'm able to stay on top of any homework that I get, and overall organization skills that I've learned are definitely very beneficial.
Thanks, Ella. And James, same question. Any organization and time management skills that are coming in handy to help you complete schoolwork in high school?
Yeah, so there's definitely like knowing when to get your work done and how to do it effectively. That definitely helps. Like Mason, me and my friend Mason, we are in math class together and we goof off for like half the homework period, but we do know how to like settle down when it's time to do our homework. So then we still get it done when like most people don't. So we do know kind of how to separate our time nicely and have good time management.
That skill of when to rein it in. That's awesome. Great. Nera, same question. Organization and time management skills. What advice might you even give to rising freshmen?
Yeah, I think that like, I don't know, having less homework at Mountain Sage than I have my whole high school experience, like I definitely didn't have to spend a lot of time structuring my life around like homework and workload, which I'm not saying you should like add more homework to the Mountain Sage classes because that's not fun, but like I definitely had to learn how to like structure my days around doing work at home. And I think, I don't know, just like staying in touch and contact with your teachers as much, like making sure you know what you have to get done. I definitely think buying like a planner is super helpful. I gave Miss Krieves so much crap about planners in 8th grade because I hated them, but it's been super helpful to have something to like write out my days and the periods of like my classes and what I need to get done that day, just to organize myself. So I think that's a super important back to school buy, as well as just like, I don't know, staying organized throughout the day, like James said, like having time to socialize and goof off, but also like realizing that you have a responsibility because it's a lot different kind of responsibility than in middle school.
Thanks, Nera. The value of planners. It's music to my ears. Thank you. And Amelia, organization and time management skills that you learned at Mountain Sage, or any advice you have for rising students?
Yeah, I would say the organization skills of just yes, being forced to use planners like Nera said, and yes, it drove me nuts, but having that skill of being able to organize all the things you need to do was very helpful. I feel like though it was a little bit different going into high school, just because like in middle school and elementary school there was always someone like checking up on you and making sure you were getting it done, and lots of reminders and whatnot. But then going into high school, it really falls on you to remember when something is due, and to pay attention to where the details are, and ask the questions if you need to, and whatnot. So my advice is don't be afraid to ask questions, because clarifying questions are always better than just sitting in silence and struggling because you're not going to get anywhere that way.
That's such great advice, Amelia. Speak up for yourself, ask questions, communicate with your teachers. It's awesome. Okay, great. So this is my last pre-planned question for you all, and then we'll kind of move into some others from folks who have joined us. How did you cultivate your friend group in high school? So, any advice? Are you on clubs? Are you on teams? How did you find people, especially in those bigger high school environments. And Ella, if you could please start.
Yeah. So at Pooter, there are pathways, which when you go into freshman year, you pick this pathway. I'm pretty sure there are 6 different ones. And that puts those people in your pathway are in all your core classes. So I'm with like almost all the same people in my English class, my bio class, my freshman seminar class. And I'll be with those people in my math classes. Electives are different, but I think that definitely ties into kind of how you make friends at Pooter. I have stayed pretty good friends with one girl who has also been at Mount Sage since kindergarten with me. And other than that, would say that I've only really made one other close friend, but I've definitely been able to be social and talk to people. And there's definitely people that I'll pass in the hallway and be like, what's up? So I think that being a Mountain Sage for so long is definitely almost you kind of forget how to make friends. But then when you start talking to people, it's just kind of easy, just finding people with your same interests and everything. But it is a lot different.
Thanks, Ella. That's such a helpful perspective also for being now in your November, so second quarter of your 9th grade freshman year. Thank you. And James, you're in the same situation. So how do you cultivate friends in high school?
Well, I am involved in like 2 different things. So I'm involved in theater, and that's like a group of 17 people that I've been with most of them since last fall. But it's not school related, it's outside of school. But during school, I am also a part of DECA. So that's definitely helped. But I've also known a few people from Mountain Sage still. And in classes, you kind of find some people that you'll connect with.
Cool. And what's DECA? I want to hear about that.
It's sort of like a business related club. So it's kind of like you're given a situation and then you kind of have to come up with a solution. So like I already did something before where it was like you're marketing like Medicare to old people, like what's your kind of strategy? And so that kind of thing. And districts is actually tomorrow, so yay.
That's awesome. Good luck at districts. That sounds like a lot of fun and a good way to connect with people who are like-minded and like to think about puzzles in that way. Awesome. Thanks, James. Okay. And Nera, how did you cultivate your friend group in high school?
I think definitely through like classes. Like James said, you kind of just find people you click with in like the first few weeks of your classes. And those just definitely grow over time. I still have a lot of Mountain Sage friends who have gone to Rocky who I still like hang out with, which is pretty cool. But like, I don't know, like my best friend or one of them who's in my first period has that DECA thing tomorrow as well. So that's pretty cool. But I was in Looking Glass last year, which is like Rocky's literary magazine. And that definitely opened a lot of cool doors to people who share interests with me. And yeah, I don't know. I think definitely just through like, if you have an extracurricular that you're super into, like a sport or something, I'm sure that is like a great way of forming friends, as well as just like classes and everyday things. I think I've made so many of my friends just through like meeting people in classes. And I don't know, I have so many friends who like aren't necessarily people that I'd hang out with every day outside of school, but like I totally go in and see in each of my classes and like we have great conversations and we're good friends. And I think those are like some of the most meaningful like friendships that I've made so far.
Great. And it sounds like even at the big schools, there are a lot of clubs and opportunities to get involved with things that you're interested in and find like-minded people. Okay, thanks. And Amelia, your perspective on this going to Polaris, creating a friend group.
Yeah, so we have what we call crews, which it is basically each grade is split up into 2 different groups. And those are the people who you spend half an hour to an hour with every school day. So you kind of they become like your little family inside of the school. And so I would say 85% of my friends are people who are in my crew just because I spend so much time with them. So it's kind of like you automatically just become friends with them. But I would say otherwise, I have made a lot of friends on the intensives just because a lot of them are kind of extreme circumstances. Like we were canoeing and it was literally raining for an entire week. So kind of the forced friendships too. You're stuck with these people and having to work together. And so that just kind of forms bonds and friendships.
Friendships through shared experience. Yeah, that's a good way. Awesome. Well, great. So I'm now moving on to the question that was submitted ahead of time from someone. This question is, and I'm actually going to split this into two parts just so it's makes sense for you all. So the first part of the question is, how prepared did you feel going from Mountain Sage to a one-to-one laptop program in high school? So do you feel at all behind in technology or with technology? Ella.
So I think because me as a person outside of school, you know, my brother is extremely into technology, and because I spent a lot of time outside of school doing games and stuff like that, I never really felt behind, but at the same time, it is really interesting seeing how some teachers do really rely on technology aspects of things, or expecting kids to almost know how to play like Kahoot, which I like honestly never heard of. And so it was just kind of like, okay, guys, let's play Kahoot, which was really confusing, but I honestly am kind of glad that I didn't really have a lot of technology in middle school because I think it really it added to me being able to learn other important skills because maybe it's just me, but I don't think Kahoot is the most important skill. And I think maybe focusing on note taking is a little more important, even though Kahoot is fun. Don't get me wrong.
I need to learn about Kahoot now. This is exciting. Thanks, Ella. So James, same question to you. How prepared did you feel going from Mountain Sage to a one-to-one laptop program in high school? And did you feel at all behind with technology?
Yeah, so kind of going off of what Ella said, there was a lot of new programs we had to learn. And that was a little confusing at first, but then you kind of got at it like the second time. Like originally I was super bad at GimKit and then I finally learned how to do it. So that's definitely kind of a different experience. I didn't feel super behind, but I think half the reason is because we were on technology quite a bit during the pandemic. Otherwise, I probably would felt like a little bit behind. So yeah, I'll end it there.
So you feel like you were able to do enough technology during the pandemic and you know other things that you all use like Google Classroom, those kinds of things transferred, right, James? Okay. Or anything else you want to add there?
You want to add anything else?
Yeah, also it's kind of nice to learn the skill of Google Classroom because all the teachers use it.
Oh, okay. They do in high school too. Great. Thanks, James. Okay, and Nera, same question. Did you feel at all behind in technology?
No, I hadn't even thought about that, but like what James said, I totally learned so much stuff on a computer during the pandemic, and it made it really easy to go into high school using a laptop like every day. It definitely makes me kind of sad though, because coming from Mountain Sage to like a big public high school, I do use my computer so much, and I'm definitely not used to that, like in every class and after school. So it's a lot of tech. Maybe that's just for the classes that I'm taking, but it's definitely more than I'm used to. I didn't feel behind. I don't think it just like, I don't know. It just kind of sucks because I wish that there were more like kind of like Ella said, like note-taking opportunities and just like on paper versus on tech all the time. And I think that's just something that unless you find a super cool like tech-free kind of high school, that's just something that is going to follow you around in public high schools. But no, I didn't really feel behind at all.
You miss main lesson books. Okay, Amelia, same question. How did you feel about technology and where you were at after Mountain Sage?
Yeah, so I was a freshman in the deeps of COVID. So I was just kind of forced to, um, figure it out with trial and error. I would say I had experience with technology from just, being on technology. But I would say the biggest thing is just having to adjust, kind of like what everybody else said, to having everything be on my computer. So writing things were no longer on pen and paper in a main lesson notebook. They were on a computer that had to be turned in on Google Classroom, and just having that adjustment of everything relying on my computer was probably the biggest change for me.
Thank you. That's helpful. And here's the second question that came in with that, is what were you, or maybe I'll rephrase this a little. What have you been most overwhelmed with in your high school years? Yeah. So Ella, so far in the last few months of being a ninth grader, what have you been most overwhelmed with in high school?
I kind of already mentioned this already, but okay, so I love being social and I love meeting new people, but it has been very overwhelming. Because if we're being real, there are a lot more drugs and things related in high school. And I think it's been a struggle kind of being near people, like 15-year-olds who are really into that, and just kind of having to be like, no, like I'm good, which at some point does make it kind of difficult because yeah, I don't know, but it has just been a struggle in some social aspects just because it is so much larger, which means there are going to be um a lot more like almost complications. That's how I put it.
Thank you for that perspective. That's really valuable in hearing. Okay. And James, what have you been most overwhelmed by so far?
Well, I mean, at the start of the year, it was definitely the fact that it was basically all the walls were white and the fluorescent lighting. It just got a little bit harsh at first, and then I'm slowly adapting to it. But it's definitely weird not to have any classrooms with windows. Yeah.
No classrooms with windows. That's interesting. Okay.
It's like a couple, but
okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the fluorescent lights. Okay. Awesome. Thanks, James. And Nera, same question. Anything you've been overwhelmed by in high school?
Yeah, I agree with Ella a lot in the fact that finding friends in your freshman year who don't, or I mean, I don't know. Okay, I think that like choosing for yourself, like whether or not you want to experiment with like drugs and alcohol is a really important choice. And finding people who share the values that you do is a difficult thing to do. And once you find those people, like that's a super cool experience. And then you have people who you connect with. I know my brother has a lot of friends who experiment with that sort of thing, and he doesn't as much, and they're still super close friends. Just finding those social situations that you want to put yourself in where you feel comfortable, and like it's very inevitable that as a freshman or sometime in your years, you're gonna like run into those situations. And I think just like having a person or a few people who share your values is super important so that you can kind of like be with that person and be like I don't know, just so you're not alone has been super important for me in making sort of decisions and like being in social situations surrounding drugs and alcohol and such. That has been pretty overwhelming though, just like the amount of people who I don't know, I hadn't really been like exposed to that before my high school years. And then it was like I was very much exposed to it. And I don't know, just kind of finding my people and figuring out how I wanted to like go through my high school experience regarding substances. It's definitely a really big thing. And I know it's like talked about like a big thing, but like it for sure is. I think also just like choosing whether or not you want to have like a super academic sort of high school experience or more of like a maybe socially oriented high school experience. I feel like I chose the more academic side of things, which means I'm overwhelmed a lot with work. My brother, for instance, chose a lot more the social kind of side of things, so he didn't take like advanced placement classes, and maybe he's more overwhelmed with the social aspect. So I think it totally depends on like where your values are. But yeah, those two things definitely have felt pretty overwhelming.
Nera, thanks so much. And I really appreciate the way you're talking about values. And I appreciate all of you sharing and being really honest in this question. Yeah. So Amelia, you too, anything you've been overwhelmed by in high school so far?
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off of what everybody said, just kind of the social scene was really overwhelming because I wanted to make friends right away and I wanted to fit in and think I want everybody to think that I'm cool and whatever. And so just kind of realizing when is when, and that in a certain situation, if it's making you really uncomfortable and that's just not what you want to be doing, it's okay to like step away and be like, you know what, these aren't my people, so yeah, over time it becomes less overwhelming and you kind of settle into where you're supposed to be. But just going into the large group of people, you might know some people but really not knowing a lot of people and trying to find your place can be overwhelming.
I'm hearing finding your place and finding your people is important. Thanks, Amelia. And I'm seeing a hand from a perhaps guest panelist right now. So Juliana Richardson, who is a 9th grader, now was in Mr. Van Horn's graduating class last year. Juliana, did you have something you wanted to add to this question?
Yes.
Turn yours off. Just close it.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Sorry.
Perfect. You're not in space anymore.
Yeah.
You're clear. Okay.
Just overall, one thing I had a hard time with was I went to a lot of these meetings when I was in middle school, and so it gave me a really lighthearted view on how my transition would go. And to be honest, it was a lot harder than I expected it to be, and I fully agree with the academic versus social aspect of high school. And I was completely I was not expecting how difficult it would be for me to transition. And I'm not saying it was impossible, or I'm just saying it wasn't easy. Because when I went in there, I realized pretty early on that you could go into high school and nobody would reach out unless you made a stand to made at least an attempt just to make eye contact with somebody. So I just want to say that overall the teachers were really nice, and of course there are some teachers who are not as into getting to know students, but there are a lot of teachers who will make that step. They'll reach out a hand. They really want to make life easier for students. It's just a lot. It was just more difficult than I expected it to be, and I just want to say that it for me, the first 2 weeks probably were the hardest, but then I started getting into a rhythm, started to kind of meet more people, just that it started out pretty rough.
So Juliana, would your advice be to really start to find your people and assert yourself, introduce yourself, right? Reach out to people, make connections?
Yes, and there was one piece of advice from actually an old panel. I think it was my 8th grade year when I heard it. It was maybe on the first day, stay after class and say hi to your teacher, introduce yourself. And that's what I did, and that really got me like into just getting to know my teachers. It helps so much because the teachers, they really, even if they don't always show it, they want to get to know you. Like, they want to be there for you. They just have so many people that they can't always notice who needs the most help.
Thanks, Juliana, and thanks for being here and chiming in. Okay, so we have a bit of time left, and I believe there were some questions posed in the chat.
Kelly, it looks
Yeah.
like Ella
Oh,
actually
Ella, I
wants to
see
step
you.
up.
Thank you. Ella, please add on.
Sorry, I just wanted to, so I can't stress this enough, but I think kind of relating back to the drugs, I think because, you know, I was able to really talk to my parents about that stuff, it removed a lot of the stress, but I do think for parents, really talk to your kids about this. I know that some parents are super open, some parents aren't, but I think like people would be surprised how much, you know, sex and alcohol and drugs are talked about, which, you know, you don't really want to think about that in a school, but it's very, very real. So just really making sure that your kids feel comfortable to talk to you about that stuff, so that way, you know, you can make sure that they're safe and all that. So
Thank you for adding that, Ella. That's a really valuable piece of advice for all the parents and guardians listening too also. Great. So I'm looking in the chat here, and Hillary, is it okay if I can see the questions?
Yeah, go for
and I'll
it.
unless private questions were sent to you as well.
No, they have not at this point, just those
Okay.
3 in the chat. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So there's a question about the Ascent program, and Nera, I know you mentioned the Ascent program. So are any of you doing it? And what is the program like for you? So go ahead and unmute if that's you and you'd like to talk about it more.
Yeah, I don't personally know a lot about it. I know you can probably find information on it on like the Rocky website, I'm sure. Or just going in and talking to like a counselor about it. I'm sorry. I totally brought that up. I should have more information on it. I just know that it's an option. I'm gonna pass that off to
No
Amelia.
shoulds. No shoulds.
Oh,
Thank you for bringing it up. Amelia, go for it.
Yes, so I'm not currently in the Ascent program, but I know a lot about it being a senior, because the Ascent program is essentially an additional year of school that is paid for by the school district, but you're taking classes solely at Front Range. So the way of thinking about it is kind of like a booster year, or if you know you don't want to go straight to a 4-year university or whatever you want to do, but you want to continue with your schooling, that is an option. So when you do become a senior, again, go talk to your counselor and they can help you register to be in the Ascent program.
Thanks, Amelia. That's helpful. And James, go ahead, add something.
From what I know about it, you just have to take a couple of college classes to qualify. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for adding that. Awesome. And is that program available? It's not just a Rocky thing, or is it? Okay.
No, I believe it's for anybody within the school district.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm not positive, but I think essentially, since you are a college freshman, you don't need to have any prerequisite classes to do that.
I'm going to jump in here real quick just because I have a senior, and we did just go to the Ascent presentation. So Poudre School District does Ascent presentations and things like that, informational sessions available every year. And you do have to have a certain GPA. You do have to have a couple of concurrent enrollment college credit classes under your belt already. and it is essentially a free year of college. But it shows on your diploma as a 5-year high school experience. So you walk with your class, but then you have another year of high school. But it is college classes at Front Range, like Amelia said.
Okay, thank you, Hillary, for popping in and adding that. Awesome. Okay, we have a couple more questions in the chat. So here's another one. How necessary do you feel a personal device is in high school, academically or personally, to stay in touch with friends? And I'm thinking this means mostly a cell phone, but how essential do you feel like that is? And feel free, any of the panelists who want to unmute, go for it.
Okay, so I think not necessarily social media, but technology is used a lot more in high school. A lot more kids are on their phone, and it's just like a lot more common. So I think yes, it is necessary, not just because, you're trying to fit in, but it is also, I think for communication, it's very important. And also, if you do end up making a good connection, you want to talk to that person, you want to reach out. And I think it also just feels, it adds to that like mature level, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Ella. Anybody else?
I know from my sister's experience doing cross country and possibly basketball, hopefully, that her coaches and things like that heavily rely on messaging and being able to communicate with everybody on the team to give updates about different, like for the cross country meets, different cross country meets, or different requirements for this or that. So at a big school, probably have that element. I know for myself, if I am in a class with some people, it's always helpful to have somebody to be able to reach out to if you have a question about an assignment. And it's a lot easier to do that if you do have a personal device that you're able to connect with somebody with.
Thanks, Amelia. Anybody else? How important a cell phone is or a personal device to stay in touch with friends?
From my experience, like it definitely is something that helps me keep in touch with my other class and keep in touch with just people in general. Like I probably wouldn't be able to see as many people as I do without one. And I know for my clubs, like it's definitely pretty heavily reliant on it. Like kind of got to get most of your information, and especially for like certain things, it's kind of nice not to have to open your computer every single time to double check that there's nothing new.
Thanks. Anything you want to add, Nera?
Yeah, I think it's totally based on like the family and their kind of values around technology, but I do think that it is more difficult to connect socially if you don't have a phone. Like that's just kind of inevitable. You'll probably like totally find people, I'm sure, and make friends, but there's definitely a different level of social connection for people who have that kind of connection outside of school. Just for like planning hangouts and even for like classes or sports, like Amelia said. So I definitely think that it is something that fosters connection. That being said, social media and such can cause a lot of problems as well. However, I think just like finding your sort of boundaries with that, parents and students like together. But I do think it is a very useful tool.
Thank you, Nera. Okay. So we have one. Yeah.
Kelly, I'm sorry. I'm just going to chime in again as a parent.
Yeah, please.
So
Another important perspective.
Yeah. There's definitely, at Mountain Sage, we drive parents to use Parent View to check grades and things like that in middle school. And in high school, the students access Student View pretty regularly. And it's a really great tool. And at least in my experience with having kids at Pooter, there's a lot of using Student View. And I know that it seems like the district has been trying to inform students more regularly through their communications and not just parents or families. So it seems like this is just the way of the world as it is.
Thanks, Hillary. And spoken from a parent perspective was just so helpful, and a true communication specialist. This is the way of the world in this moment. It's true. Okay, great. So here's the last question that I see currently in the chat. The question is, what was your favorite class, or has been your favorite class or club you chose in high school, and why? So any of you who would like to unmute as a panelist, go for it.
Okay, so I love art. It's always been one of my favorite things. And my first elective that I took this year was art, and I really enjoyed it. Sadly, because just of my personal life, I can't join any sort of clubs or anything at the moment. I do plan on doing that eventually, but there was a musical that I began to audition for, ended up not continuing that, just again, outside of school things, but I did really enjoy art. And although I can't participate in a lot of clubs, there are so many. So no matter what your interest is, there is a club for you.
That's a good perspective. Anybody else? Clubs or activities you've enjoyed?
Yeah, like I said before, I was a part of the Looking Glass, which is like the literary magazine at Rocky. And they meet on Mondays. I think it's Tuesdays this year, but like after school for a little while. And we created this super cool magazine that we've had throughout the years. It's won like a lot of awards and stuff. It's super cool. And people from Rocky, students submit artwork and poems and short stories and such. And a group of like students review the work, and we decide what like and where, and just organize this magazine filled with students' work. And that was a super cool thing that I did as a freshman. I love writing and I love art and creative things like that. And it was super cool to be a part of that and kind of build a community throughout that with people who I knew had the same interests as me. So I think that if you, as a ninth grader or whatever, are interested in that sort of thing, definitely check that out. I know that other high schools in the district also have sort of magazines like that. Ella, I don't know if Pooter does as well, but it was pretty cool. And yeah, I don't know, I've enjoyed art classes as well. Rocky has a super great art program, and just finding your people. I know I've said this a lot, but finding your people in kind of those classes and clubs like that have been super cool, to just find people who have the same interests as I do.
Thanks, Nera. It makes my teacher heart so happy that you were involved in that literary magazine. You're such a prolific and important writer. It's awesome. Anybody else, James or Amelia, any clubs that you felt like have been really important, or maybe something you're still interested in getting into?
Yeah, so the only, I wouldn't really even consider it a club, but the only activity that I was a part of at Polaris was SARTS, which is Sexual Assault Resource Team Peers. So we basically went around to middle school and high school classes, and we just kind of talked about like what sexual violence looks like, what you do if you ever experience it, and then also just like what healthy relationships looks like and how you should go about having a healthy relationship. So that was very helpful and meaningful to me, because I was, helping bring awareness to things like that. And I just have to say, my favorite class that I took was national parks, where we literally just learned about all the national parks in the United States. And that was by far my favorite.
That sounds so fun. And then you went on a trip to every national park in the entire, no, that would be a really cool part of the class though. And thanks for sharing about, yeah, right. I don't know if you'd have enough time, or, there'd be, there's a lot going on there. logistics wise for the school. And thanks for sharing about that program. That sounds super powerful and empowering. It's great. James, anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, so I actually recently joined Spanish Club at Rocky. It's pretty cool. You just kind of go places and then like we just kind of make things and eat things. It's really fun. Like we made cool cookies for Dia de los Muertos. So yeah.
Awesome. And James, you felt like, after having Espanol for many years at Mountain Sage, you felt pretty able to join a club like that and get involved. Yeah. Easily.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, great. I do not see any more questions in the chat. Hillary, did you receive any?
I have not, but I'm also going to jump in here as a parent again.
Yes.
My son, who is a senior at Pooter, has been involved in the Futures Lab since his freshman year. And I don't know if any of the panelists have done Futures Lab, but it is something I think that Mountain Sage families would really be interested in. It's a program that's available to any student at any school. Now it's based at Pooter, but the district, if you sign up for Futures Lab classes, provides busing to wherever Futures Lab is. And it's either your entire morning, your entire afternoon, and it's all kinds of really cool programming focused on professional development. So whatever you do, you're walking away with it with some sort of professional knowledge or certificate. And there's, Miles has chosen to do networking and cybersecurity and coding. Now he's doing aviation, and it's going to walk away with his drone pilot license. It's just really cool. All these really cool things, but they have culinary and education and lots of different avenues. And you can also earn college credit for those classes. So I would encourage folks to consider looking at Futures Lab. Typically, it's not something that freshmen do, but you can. And then I think Miles personally has enjoyed that more than his time necessarily at Pooter. He loves Futures Lab. So something else to just consider when you're looking at schools. Know there's this other option available no matter what school you're at.
That sounds incredible, Hillary. I hadn't heard about that. And wow, what an opportunity for students. And you were saying that it's in addition to the classes that they're taking. And so it's during the school day, or it's an extracurricular?
It's during the school day. So
okay.
it ties into your credits, and it aligns. And so your counselor will be able to help you plan out what that looks like. So it's either your morning classes or your afternoon classes are at Futures Lab, and then the other half of your day is at your home school.
Okay, great. Okay. Oh, Eric is asking to you, Hillary, since you have experience with Futures Lab, do you have to make sacrifices otherwise to be able to fit it in?
No, like I was saying, it's just part of the school day. And Miles has really taken advantage of it. And he's gotten all kinds of really cool experiences and professional certifications. He's probably had more homework with those classes in some ways than his Pooter classes, but it's just during the school day and fits right into the program.
So incredible. What a neat opportunity that's being provided.
Like Ella's, it's just cool. It looks like Ella's raising her hand.
Oh, Ella, please go ahead, jump in.
I just wanted to say the Futures Lab, because it is at Pooter, it's in like the downstairs area, but we're not really supposed to, like, unless you're part of that, like Futures Lab is supposedly its own school. You're not supposed to be in there, but when I have been in there, it has been just like really welcoming and really warming. And I think that they do have a lot of different things to offer. So
thanks, Ella. And a question, can you do Futures Lab and AP classes together? Hillary, do you know?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you have half your day as whatever is not Futures Lab. So you could take AP classes, just kind of depends on what floats your boat.
Awesome. Okay. Are there any final comments or words of wisdom to students who are rising in the middle school grades at Mountain Sage that the panelists would like to offer tonight?
This one, okay. So I remember in 8th grade, I was so scared because I did not think that Mountain Sage prepared me well enough, just because it is a very different teaching style. And so for all like the parents and guardians in here, if your kids are scared about that, let them know like Mountain Sage does really, really well on preparing you, even if you don't see it. I don't know if that was just for me, but like it did a really great job, and I'm able to complete everything in a timely fashion, and my grades are really good right now. So
Thank you, Ella. Anyone else? Any closing thoughts or words of wisdom for others?
Yeah, I wanted to say that for freshmen going in next year, or at least this was my experience, I miss so many aspects of Mountain Sage. And I think in a way, just like keeping those sort of things alive in your high school experience, like whether it's like going on a nature walk by yourself after school, or like just with the way you note take, because it's so much more open in high school, where like you are given this responsibility where like you're expected to just start writing notes when a teacher starts a presentation. And though that is like a lot of responsibility to keep on top of your stuff, like there's a lot more freedom there. So there's no like, don't be doodling right now, and you can make your notes as colorful and however you want. And I think just like bringing things that I learned that are maybe like less academic from Mountain Sage and more just like creative into my life, like to this day, has been super amazing, because I do miss that experience a lot. And also just like coming back, like on Friday, I went on Lantern Walk and it was great. And I think just like staying connected to both communities and finding ways to bring those aspects of things from Mountain Sage that you maybe miss or really enjoyed, and finding ways to like integrate those into your high school experience has been super great for me.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else? Words of wisdom, closing thoughts?
For people who are still there, enjoy the class community you have now. That's definitely something you'll lose once you leave.
Thanks, James. I remember often in moments of conflict or silliness or something, Nera, you probably remember me shouting at the class, cherish one another, cherish one another. And it really is true. Cherish the moments you have. There are more beautiful moments to come in a myriad of different ways, but cherish what you have while you're here and bring it with you, as Nera said. Anything you'd like to add, Amelia?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, anywhere you go, all your teachers and staff and things like that want you to succeed. So lean into that and use the resources that you're given. If somebody's offering time to help you, like one of the teachers, go for it. Like you can always learn more. And just because it's new doesn't mean it should be something that you don't do or you avoid.
Such excellent advice. Thank you, Amelia. So thank you all so much for being here. I really hope the evening was enlightening for you as a student or parent or guardian of a rising student coming through the grades at Mountain Sage. I'll leave you tonight with gratitude for our panelists. Thank you so much, alumni, for being here. We really miss you, and having you out in high school and in the world just makes our hearts swell with pride. And also, I'll leave you with a portion of our school's vision statement that reads, children emerge from Mountain Sage as intelligent, compassionate, creative thinkers who are engaged citizens with a strong work ethic, prepared to become stewards of the earth and its many diverse communities. So thank you again to all of our alumni and families who joined us tonight. We are very grateful for your time and proud of who you are in connection with Mountain Sage. Everybody have a great night.